most controversial band songs of the 1970s. Part 1. The songs that crossed the line. Number 15, Timothy, The Buoys, 1971.
One knows the only ones left for Joe and me.
In 1971, a 3-minute pop song shocked radio listeners in a way few songs ever had. Timothy, recorded by the Buoys and written by Rupert Holmes, tells a dark and unsettling story disguised as a harmless melody. On the surface, it sounds like a standard early 70s rock tune. But listen closely, and the story takes a horrifying turn. The song follows 3 miners trapped underground after a cave-in. As food runs out and desperation sets in, only 2 make it back to the surface. Timothy doesn't. The implication? Cannibalism. Radio stations were outraged. Many banned the song outright. Accusing it of glamorizing violence and crossing moral boundaries. Others refused to even say the song's title on air. Ironically, the controversy worked. Timothy climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the Buoys' only major hit.
Timothy, where on earth did you go?
To this day, it remains one of the darkest stories ever told in a mainstream pop song. Proof that in the 70s, even radio-friendly music wasn't afraid to go places listeners didn't expect. Number 14. Another Brick in the Wall. Part 2. Pink Floyd, 1979. When Pink Floyd released Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, they weren't just criticizing school systems. They were igniting real-world rebellion.
Teacher, leave them kids.
The chant, "We don't need no education," became one of the most recognizable lines in rock history. But in 1980, that message became a political problem. In apartheid-era South Africa, the government banned the song after it was adopted by black students protesting inequality in the education system. Authorities claimed the track encouraged unrest. They weren't wrong. Beyond its political impact, the song was revolutionary musically.
In the classroom.
David Gilmour's smooth guitar solo, Roger Waters' biting lyrics, and the eerie children's choir created a dystopian anthem that felt both hypnotic and confrontational.
All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
Decades later, Another Brick in the Wall still resonates, not just as a rock classic, but as proof that music can challenge power structures and give voice to the unheard. Number 13, One Toke Over the Line, Brewer and Shipley, 1970. At first listen, One Toke Over the Line sounds mellow, relaxed, almost innocent. But in 1970, that title alone was enough to trigger outrage. Recorded by Brewer and Shipley, the song openly referenced marijuana use at a time when drug culture was under intense scrutiny. Conservative groups labeled it propaganda. Radio stations banned it. Broadcasters warned it would corrupt young listeners. The irony: the song was famously performed on The Lawrence Welk Show, where the hosts appeared completely unaware of its meaning. Despite the backlash, One Toke Over the Line reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Brewer and Shipley later joked that they never expected anyone to take the song so seriously.
If I should
It became a defining example of how 70s counterculture music clashed head-on with mainstream America, and won. Number 12, Christine 16, Kiss, 1977. By 1977, Kiss were kings of shock rock, but Christine 16 pushed their image into deeply uncomfortable territory. Written and sung by Gene Simmons, the song describes a grown man's attraction to a 16-year-old girl, and it doesn't leave much to interpretation. Lines referencing her age sparked immediate backlash. Critics called it exploitative. Radio stations refused to play it. Parents' groups demanded explanations. Despite the controversy, the song became a hit, powered by its pounding piano riff and Kiss's trademark bombast. It raised an uncomfortable question that still lingers today. Where does rock rebellion end and irresponsibility begin? Christine 16 remains one of the most debated songs in Kiss's catalog, a reminder that shock value doesn't age the same way music does. Number 11, Bobby Brown, Frank Zappa, 1979.
She had my balls in a vice, but she left the dick.
If Frank Zappa was involved, controversy was guaranteed. Bobby Brown is a satirical takedown of American masculinity. Privilege and hypocrisy, wrapped in an upbeat, almost cheerful melody.
Take about an hour on the Tower of Power, as long as I get some.
That made its lyrics even more jarring. The song tells the story of a shallow, morally bankrupt character who represents everything Zappa despised about frat culture
Be real rich.
and blind conformity. Its explicit content led to bans across multiple countries and limited airplay in the US.
But now it shoots to break. Oh God,
Ironically, Bobby Brown became a massive hit in Europe, topping charts in Norway and Sweden. Zappa didn't apologize. He never did.
watch me now. Going down in my name.
To him, discomfort was the point. The song remains one of the sharpest examples of satire in rock history, and one of the most divisive. Number 10, Locomotive Breath, Jethro Tull, 1971. When Jethro Tull released Locomotive Breath in 1971, it wasn't meant to be a protest anthem, but it became one anyway. The song opens with a rolling piano intro before exploding into a relentless, chugging rhythm that never slows down. That wasn't accidental. Frontman Ian Anderson described it as a metaphor for modern life. Unstoppable, overcrowded, and spiraling out of control. But the controversy didn't come from the lyrics alone. In 1971, Jethro Tull performed at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado.
The stations one by one.
Thousands of fans without tickets stormed the venue, triggering riots and forcing police intervention. Local officials blamed the chaos on rock music and counterculture. And Red Rocks temporarily banned rock concerts altogether. While Locomotive Breath itself wasn't banned, it became symbolically tied to the event. To critics, it represented everything dangerous about rock. To fans, it became a rallying cry against authority. 50 years later, that runaway train metaphor feels more relevant than ever. Number 9. Hi, 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 Paul McCartney and Wings, 1972. After leaving the Beatles, Paul McCartney insisted he was just having fun. But Hi, Hi, Hi made broadcasters nervous. Released by Wings in 1972, the song's title alone raised eyebrows. Lyrics referencing getting high and suggestive behavior were enough for the BBC to ban it outright. Labeling the track inappropriate and drug-oriented. McCartney denied any serious intent, claiming it was playful and exaggerated. But critics weren't convinced. The ban only fueled curiosity, and fans quickly embraced the song's rebellious energy. Musically, Hi, Hi, Hi is pure McCartney, driving guitars, infectious melody, and a wink-at-the-camera attitude. It proved that even after the Beatles, Paul still knew how to stir the pot. Sometimes controversy isn't about what's said, but how loudly it's sung. Number 8, DOA, Bloodrock, 1970. Few songs in rock history are as disturbing as DOA. Recorded by Bloodrock, the 6-minute track places the listener inside a dying man's mind.
Does that take you back?
After a plane crash, flames, blood, panic, all narrated in graphic detail from a first-person perspective. Radio stations were horrified. Many pulled the song immediately, calling it too graphic and emotionally unsettling for airplay. Some DJs refused to even introduce it, but the bands only amplified interest. DOA climbed to number 36 on the Billboard charts and became a cult classic in hard rock circles. It wasn't meant to entertain.
The face beside me stopped its...
It was meant to confront. And for many listeners, it crossed a line rock music hadn't crossed before. Number 7, Wild Tiger Woman, The Move, 1972. By the early 70s, The Move were already known for pushing boundaries. But Wild Tiger Woman went even further. Released as the B-side to Fire Brigade, the track was raw, aggressive, and unapologetically sexual. Lyrics hinting at domination and animalistic desire made radio programmers uncomfortable. Especially in the UK. Despite contributions from Roy Wood and Jeff Lynne, who would soon form Electric Light Orchestra, the song struggled for airplay. Many stations quietly ignored it, unsure how to handle its unrefined energy. Still, fans loved it. Wild Tiger Woman captured the reckless spirit of early 70s rock, when bands were less concerned with chart success and more interested in shock, sound, and freedom. It didn't become a hit, but it became a statement. Number 6, Rocky Mountain High, John Denver, 1972. At first glance, Rocky Mountain High sounds like one of the most peaceful songs of the 1970s. Released in 1972,
Strings already broken, and he doesn't really care.
it's a heartfelt tribute to nature, solitude, and the spiritual connection John Denver found in Colorado's mountains. But the controversy came down to one word. High. In the early 70s, paranoia around drug culture was everywhere. Some radio stations and conservative groups assumed the song referenced marijuana use,
Try to tear the mountains down, bring in a couple more.
rather than emotional elevation. Despite Denver repeatedly explaining that high referred to the overwhelming beauty and clarity he felt in nature, the suspicion stuck. A few stations limited airplay, others debated banning it outright. Ironically, the song became one of Denver's most beloved hits. And decades later, it was officially adopted as one of Colorado's state songs. What was once viewed as suspicious is now seen as sincere and poetic. It's a perfect example of how meaning depends entirely on who's listening.
Oh, and we synthesizer and organ.
Organ, right, okay.
See, you were wrong.
Number 5, Short People, Randy Newman, 1977. Few songs have been more misunderstood than Short People. Released in 1977 by Randy Newman, the song shocked listeners with lyrics like, "Short people got no reason to live." Taken at face value, it sounded cruel, offensive, and outright hateful.
Dirty little man, they're gonna get you every.
Radio stations received complaints almost immediately. Some banned the track. Advocacy groups condemned it. But Newman was doing what he always did.
Platform shoes on the nasty little feet. Well, I don't.
Writing satire. The song isn't mocking short people. It's mocking prejudice itself, exposing how absurd bigotry sounds when taken to its extreme.
This is the one.
Particularly in Switzerland.
Len wants to put strings in the bridge.
Yes, I think that'll do it.
Personally, I think.
Newman even said the narrator is intentionally awful, a caricature of ignorance. Despite the backlash, Short People climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Catchy piano, playful melody, and sharp irony made it impossible to ignore. It proved that satire doesn't always land, especially when it hits too close to home. Number 4, You Just Like Me 'Cause I'm Good in Bed, Skyhooks, 1974. Leave it to an Australian glam rock band to completely disregard subtlety. When Skyhooks released You Just Like Me 'Cause I'm Good in Bed in 1974, the title alone guaranteed controversy. Australian radio stations banned it almost instantly, citing explicit sexual content. But Skyhooks didn't back down. They leaned in. The song became a massive underground hit, embraced by young listeners who were tired of censorship and moral panic. Musically, it's classic glam rock. Swaggering bass lines, crunchy guitars, and a tongue-in-cheek vocal delivery that knew exactly what it was doing. Skyhooks weren't just pushing buttons for shock value. They were challenging who got to decide what was acceptable in music. In the process, they became symbols of creative freedom in Australia's rock scene. Number 3, Vietnam, Jimmy Cliff, 1970. Released in 1970, Vietnam by Jimmy Cliff wasn't controversial because it was loud or aggressive. It was controversial because it was honest.
We the people did not like the war in Iraq.
Set to a deceptively upbeat reggae rhythm, the song tells the story of a young soldier writing letters home. Until the letters stop. The final message comes not from the soldier, but from the military, announcing his death. Unlike many protest songs, Vietnam doesn't shout. It mourns. That subtlety made it powerful and dangerous. Some radio stations avoided it entirely. Conservative broadcasters saw it as anti-war propaganda.
Stop the war! Somebody stop the war! Ooh, somebody stop!
Even pro-war listeners found it uncomfortable. Bob Dylan famously called Vietnam the best protest song ever written.
Today, it was a dress from...
Cliff humanized war at a time when many wanted to avoid its consequences. The song helped introduce reggae as a serious vehicle for social commentary and paved the way for global artists like Bob Marley. Its message hasn't aged, because war hasn't either.
That's what I said. Only the good.
Number 2, Only the Good Die Young, Billy Joel, 1977.
Only the good time.
When Billy Joel released Only the Good Die Young in 1977, he probably expected some raised eyebrows, but not the firestorm that followed.
The line, stained glass curtain you're hiding behind. Never.
The song tells the story of a young man trying to convince a Catholic girl to loosen up, break away from her strict upbringing, and live a little.
That's what I said. Only.
With lyrics like, "Catholic girls start much too late," religious organizations reacted immediately. Catholic groups accused Joel of mocking faith
But did she ever say a prayer for me? Oh, oh, oh.
and promoting immorality. Several radio stations pulled the song. Protests followed. Calls for boycotts weren't far behind. Joel defended himself,
The good time. You might have heard I run with a.
explaining that the song wasn't anti-religion. It was pro-choice, pro-youth, and pro-questioning authority.
I'm on the chin, show me a sign, send up a signal out.
He also pointed out something critics often ignored. The girl in the song ultimately says no. Ironically, the backlash only made the song bigger. Only the Good Die Young climbed the charts, became a staple of Joel's live shows, and remains one of his most recognizable tracks.
One, darling, you know only the good die young.
What started as playful provocation turned into a cultural debate about faith, freedom, and who gets to draw the line. Number 1, Bring the Boys Home, Freda Payne, 1971. At the height of the Vietnam War, Bring the Boys Home wasn't just controversial, it was dangerous. Released in 1971 by Freda Payne, the song was a direct plea for American soldiers to be brought home safely. No metaphors, no subtlety, just raw emotion and truth. Written and produced by General Johnson and Greg Perry, the track highlighted a devastating reality. Young soldiers, many of them black, were dying overseas in staggering numbers. The average age of casualties was just 20. The public connected immediately. The song climbed to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 4 on the Soul chart. But the backlash was swift. The American Forces Network banned the song entirely, fearing it would demoralize troops or help the enemy. Some U.S. radio stations labeled it unpatriotic and refused to play it. Payne didn't back down. She later said the bans only proved how deeply divided the country had become. Bring the Boys Home became an anthem of the anti-war movement. Not because it shouted, but because it mourned. It reminded listeners that behind every political argument was a family waiting for someone who might never return. Decades later, the song still hurts, because its message is still unresolved. They were about risk. Artists challenge power.
When I
Take off your face.
So now
We
we
come
ask
from the trip you.
which controversial 70s song do you think crossed the line or didn't cross it far enough?
Coming home to a place he
Subscribe
That German
and stay
synthesizer.
tuned.
Yeah.
Because music is